It's time for another episode of Inside the Circle, the podcast. And joining me once again this week to reflect on the 2018 Vitality Hockey Women's World Cup are Giselle Ansley and Ellie Rayer. First of all, guys, welcome back to the show and thanks for joining us for a second podcast.
No problem at all. Hello.
So last week we dedicated the programme to talking about sort of the build-up to the World Cup and all the things that went around it, the photo shoots, the appearances with Colin Murray and Candice Brown, selection and all that sort of thing. And this week we want to focus on the actual tournament itself. So one thing we touched upon last week was the massive stand that was built opposite the player tunnel that you run out of. And I know you guys were sort of training on the pitch in the lead up to as it was being built. Yeah, I guess how did that feel for you? Like you mentioned last time, seeing this sort of temporary structure getting bigger and bigger every time you were training. Did that sort of heighten the sense of excitement each time you saw it growing and the tournament was coming closer?
I think
yeah.
We had like practice matches, so we played like pretty much 4 weekends on the trot. Practice matches at Lee Valley against other nations, and every time we go back, there's just a little bit more built up and a little bit more and a little bit more. And so we were like, this is big. But still, that being said, until you fill it with people, I didn't get a true sense of how ginormous it was.
Yeah, definitely. As it just got bigger and bigger, there was, an extra row of seating. We're like, how many do you reckon this fits? And there was always like, oh, I reckon it can fit this many. No, it just got bigger and bigger. We're like, okay, this is pretty cool.
Did you guys ever get to venture up to the top of the stand at all?
Pardon?
Did you guys ever get to venture up to the top of the stand at all?
No, I think I would have felt a little bit sick. It was very high. My uncle was watching one of the games from way up the top, and the pictures he's got are amazing. And then obviously, I think it's Grace has got a background of her phone is the picture of the red arrows coming over the top of the stand on the opposite side, over the top of the actual kind of building, and then the picture is from the massive stand. It looks absolutely incredible because all of the people, you've got the bright blue pitch underneath. So yeah, I do kind of wish I'd seen it. But
that first game then, and I know it's something you alluded to last time, Giselle, but standing in the tunnel for the first time and then coming out of the tunnel to that wall of noise, what was that like for you guys?
I don't know how you describe it. It was just like we ran out, and like the flames, the fire, obviously of the pride, like the noise. It was just, and like everyone, the see red, wear red. Like you went out, and it was just like mind blowing. And actually, it was like I tried to take a bit of a look before we ran out of the tunnel, like in the warm up, trying to sneak and sort of go down to see it. So actually, it wasn't quite so enormous as I ran out onto the pitch. That also, like I could soak it in a little bit more beforehand. But yeah, like the butterflies in my stomach were going mad. Like just, yeah, it was incredible.
Yeah, I think as we ran out, so we'd spoken about it before, like that it was going to be something that we hadn't experienced before. So we'd had this conversation, and we'd said that if you can, because we obviously didn't warm up on the match pitch, we warmed up on the pitch behind, so you could hear the noise, you could sort of see, but not very well. And then we had said, like, if you can sneak down the kind of the tunnel to have a little look, just try and kind of so it's not such a big like shock as you go out. But I think even though we did that, still running out, and I was like, whoa, it was literally like hit you. And I guess, yeah, it almost kind of took you back a little bit. But then it was just like, this is going to be epic. And it just made me so much more excited. And I was just like, let's just play because this is so good.
Did it make you feel as though that hockey had all of a sudden become a bit of a major thing? Because Sally Munday, a former chief exec of England Hockey, always tells the story about how when the Red Arrows flew over, she was sitting behind someone who said, oh, wasn't that lucky that the Red Arrows just happened to fly over at that time? Like, here we were. We had the Red Arrows flying over. We had a temporary stand, 10,000 people in watching you guys. Did that sort of make you feel like, okay, hockey is big time now?
Yeah. Much more so, definitely. And I think just incredibly grateful as well for like the unbelievable work that went into that. Obviously, the bidding process started years before to host it, and the work that went in behind the scenes, that us as players were the ones that got to go out and experience it and actually play and do what we love, and all thanks to the many people that had worked so hard, worked tirelessly for years to make it work. And I think when you've got people that have put that much time and effort into it, for us, like, to play there and to experience that, makes it even more special. And I think we just wanted to desperately try and do everyone proud, and obviously kind of England proud as a nation, which sadly didn't quite go as well as we hoped. But yeah, we're definitely, it's a tournament that will live long in the memories for all of us, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think, like, obviously we train at Bisham, and we train for moments like this and opportunities like that, and just the amount of work that had gone in behind the scenes to put on such an incredible event. That for us, it was like, right, wow, like, and just soaking up every single second and every single moment and opportunity that you could, because I don't think it comes around often, and it was such a phenomenal event and such a phenomenal job that it's like, wow.
Yeah, I can't imagine that in my career necessarily playing something like that again. It was huge.
So for you then, Giselle, was it even so there was more noise and a bigger occasion than the Olympics?
In terms of the crowd noise and numbers, yeah, definitely, like than Rio, yeah, it was. Obviously, and they're both different in their own right, the Olympics and the World Cup, because they are the two biggest competitions that we have. But yeah, the fact that it was at home as well, I think, made it feel very different.
And that first game then against India, you've come out to the wall of noise, the flames, you've had the brass band, you've had the Red Arrows, and now it's time to get the hockey started. Was it a case of you were sort of able to just sort of almost forget everything that's going on around you and settle into it, or did it take a few minutes to just sort of take everything and then sort of realise the occasion and then just start playing your normal games?
I'll let you go.
I think for me, it was once the whistle goes, you're playing hockey and you're doing what you do every day, but it's just a little bit more fun because it's a match and it means a lot. So yeah, for me, I just kind of, once I get into the game, then I just think about the game. And yeah, I mean, I love like hearing the noise. For me, I really like that. I don't necessarily just switch off from it. I really like listening to it. So yeah, just cracked on basically. And I think pretty much that was the way that we discussed it. We've spoken about it as one of the kind of things that we always discuss before any tournament, for any game, because any international game that you go and play is important. So we always want to ensure that we're preparing pretty much in the same way. So we always talk about what it's going to feel like when you first go out there, what you're going to expect to feel like kind of playing. First 5 minutes of any international game, especially a tournament, you always feel terrible, like absolutely terrible. And we're just like, you're gonna feel like that. You're gonna feel like you're unfit, that you're knackered, like that you can't trap a ball, you can't pass a ball. You're gonna feel like that. That's absolutely fine because it'll go. So I think everyone was prepared for that as well. That this is the way it may feel. If you don't feel like that, great. Like lucky you. But if you do, don't worry about it. You'll be all right.
So yeah, I think Giselle hit the nail on the head. We had so many conversations and discussions around what it would feel like and what it might look like, and all of this. That actually, yeah, as soon as that whistle went, it was just, we're here to do a job, and that is to play. So it was very much, yeah, just all focused. Whistle goes, boom, we're off.
Do your job, and yeah, that's the most important thing.
I mean, one thing I've always noticed with home hockey crowds, whether you're playing as England or Great Britain, is that when you guys are in attack, the crowd get right behind you and give you a lot of support. And obviously that was doubled, or if not tripled, at the World Cup, because there were that many more fans. Do you hear that, and does that sort of energy feed down to you guys on the pitch? Like when you're attacking, you can almost like feel the crowd pushing you, or again, is that something you just sort of block out now?
I love it. I think that actually, I think it helps us definitely, and I definitely hear it. I don't block it out. I know that some people kind of go into a zone, and the way that they can get through the game and stuff is by blocking it out and just focusing solely on what's going on the pitch. But yeah, I like to just embrace that. And obviously, being from behind, so like playing at the back, I'm often like, yeah, let's go. Keep everyone going. Come on, crowd, keep going.
I think I don't actively block it out, but I definitely don't notice it in some tournaments. And the World Cup, you couldn't not notice it. Like the noise just was, I say, ridiculous. And actually it was like a wave. It was just right. The noise is going, yeah, you know what, we're going to. We've got this. Yeah, thrive on it. Like just use the energy and take it on the pitch with us.
And that first game against India, you obviously scored your first goal through, was it Lily? Lily scored near the end of the game. That was the first time that you'd heard a crowd of that size celebrating a goal at home. How cool was that for you all?
Yeah, really cool. Loud, and I can't even. What song did we choose? I can't remember what song we'd chosen for our goal song.
I didn't hear it once.
But I don't. Yeah, that precisely. We'd chosen a song, but I don't remember hearing it. But we did. Obviously, we scored that goal. I don't remember hearing it then, but that's because the crowd was so loud. So it was great.
I'm not going to sing it, but wasn't it Chelsea Dagger by the Fratellis? Was it that one?
Quite possibly, but couldn't tell you.
You can listen to Inside the Circle, the podcast, on iTunes, Apple Music, YouTube, and all other good podcast providers. And then going into your second game now, another incredible goal. That your second goal of the tournament was that solo goal from Alex Danson, the record equaling goal. Yeah. Being down there on the pitch, when she first picked the ball up, did you as her teammates and her friends get a sense of when, you know, someone like that's about to do something special, or were you just sort of almost, as everyone else was, just sort of standing there in awe watching her score that goal?
I think the thing with Alex is Alex has the ability to do that. Like every time you get the ball, every time Alex would get the ball, you're like, right, she could do something special here. And I think, yeah, every time near the D, she was just so dangerous that actually, you're like, you know what, anything can happen and we're going to be ready. Like, I think I was on the back post at this point, like, if this comes past me, I'm not letting it pass me. And of course it was our shooting, so she was never going to miss on her backhand. But it was just like incredible. And that was what her record equaling goal, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just incredible, really. Yeah, I don't know what you thought.
No, I agree. I think whenever Alex got the ball, it was, that's why she was one of the world's best, is because she could create something from nothing. And so obviously I just don't know, I just had this feeling, I had no doubt that she was going to score. But I guess kind of I always had that about Alex.
And that was a very special day for Alex. Not only did she equal the GB in England's all-time goal scoring record, but it was her 200th cap. And I know that in the England and Great Britain women's teams, like, you take a lot of pride in each other's milestones, and you really do celebrate them. So for you guys, how special was that to be a part of such a momentous day for her at a home World Cup?
I think just the emotion around it, like, was ridiculous. And I remember we did a friends and family zone after the game, did a presentation, and now got given her flowers. And actually everyone's friends and family, like, as a team, normally on a milestone we'll all make like a guard of honor, and they'll run through it, and then we'll all have a cheer. And actually everyone's friends and families got involved. And I remember standing there crying, like, because it was just like incredible. And for someone who's given so much to the game, to achieve it then, like, was just amazing. Yeah,
I agree. That was incredible, the bit in the friends and family zone for Al. And I remember she took so long to come out from the changing room, and we literally had everyone's parents there, and it's like we played late, so it was already like really late now. People had trains, like last trains to catch and stuff, but no one, and I mean like no one, wanted to miss it, so everybody stayed. I remember at the end, like, my parents literally having to sprint for a train to try and get the last one they could. But yeah, no one wanted to miss it and be there, but she just took hours. And it's Alex, because she was, spending time with like all the fans and everything like that, and she just is just such a fantastic ambassador for our game, that she'd gone through all of that. She'd had to do all of the post-match interviews that and the media and the press and stuff, and then come out. And I think she was so overwhelmed by it as well, but I think it was an incredibly special way to mark such a huge achievement.
Yeah, I think I think every single journalist in the stadium that day wanted to speak to Alex, whether they were from England or from another country. She was very much in demand. But again, then you guys, as we said, you really do dedicate and celebrate each other's milestones. I guess as a team, then, are those individual moments something that are really special and really important to you all, not just the person whose milestone it is?
Yeah, I think they also, the reason they feel so special, even if even though it's not your own, is because you know what it takes to do that, to get there. And I think 200, playing for your country 200 times over the career that she's had and stuff like that, like, it takes so much, you give so much, and I think we can understand that and the different journey that every single player has been on, and that's why I think it's an incredibly important thing that we do recognise them, but also that's why we love to share those moments with people. I just think, they're also moments that people will remember for the rest of their lives, and we're lucky enough to have just been a part of that.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Moving on then, after that game against the USA, so you'd had 2 draws from your opening 2 games, and everything was very much up in the air, and all to play for. Ireland had sort of guaranteed, I think, the top spot in the group heading into that final game against them. And there was still, but for you guys, there was still a lot to play for. So did sort of the mood and the approach change leading into that final game, or did you just approach it as, this is a game we have to win, that's it, we're not thinking about any ramifications?
Yeah, pretty much. That's all you can do, really. You have to just focus on what we can do. and we knew that we had to go and win.
We could only control what was within our capabilities, so we just put everything into going out there and making sure that we took those 3 points and started take the momentum into the next round.
And do you remember much about that game at all? Because from what I seem to remember, you were peppering the Irish goal with a lot of chances, and their goalkeeper was in inspired form that day.
Yeah, I mean, the Irish are always, fighters, and that they're going to fight to the bitter end, and they're going to defend the goal with absolutely everything they've got. And what I remember about it is that we had hundreds of short corners, and I was just like, come on, one of these has to go in. At some point, we've got to score. And it was another corner after another corner after another corner. I was like, come on, this one. And I kept telling myself that this one is going to go in. I think that, we just had to believe in our process and what we'd set out to do, and just trust that it was going to work.
Absolutely. I say, because like you mentioned earlier, because we had a couple of days in between each game, you really had time to have that mindset and to think about that, and it wasn't the just straight off the back of 2 draws and then into this game. We had 3 or 4 days to really make sure our heads were in completely the right place for it, which I say, if we'd only had 1 day, I think they still would have been, but actually with that extra time, it just guaranteed and cemented it. If that makes sense.
And then, Giselle, you did manage to score a corner, I think, quite late on, less than 10 minutes to go. And the emotion that we saw in your celebration and everyone's celebration was incredible. How good did that feel, I guess, that you had scored and it was late on, and that it had been a difficult game, but things looked like they were going to go your way?
Yeah, I think the kind of reaction was relief. Thank goodness. And in all the other games, those first 2 games, we genuinely believed that we'd played well and we'd created chances, and we just hadn't been able to finish games off. And I think it was almost like, this one, we know how important it is. We know what rides on the back of it, but we can't put any more pressure on this, because that's not going to do anything to help us at all. I just had to keep telling myself that it was going to work at one point. And albeit a deflection off one of their defenders, but it went in the goal, and as a team we'd scored and ultimately won the game, which put us through to the next round. So I think the celebration from all of us was relief.
Ellie, do you remember much about that goal at all?
In all honesty, I don't think I do. I think, I can imagine it, as in I can imagine Giselle's celebration, because it's a textbook celebration. She's got to go through celebration. But in all honesty, I think most of my memories, being on the pitch, are quite hazy. It's a funny one, but I do remember the relief of it all. And it was, we stuck to our processes, and it has paid off, and it's happened. We've got the goal, and that sort of feeling, if I'm honest.
And at the end of that game, then full-time Hooter goes. You've won your first game of the World Cup, and you're through. You've qualified from the group through to the crossovers. How did that make you feel? Was there quite a lot of, again, relief, or was it more of a sense of, right, that box is ticked, just going to move on to the next game as we would normally?
I think a bit of both, to be honest. It was kind of job done. And we always set ourselves goals through the tournament, smaller goals, as well as obviously your ultimate goal and aim is to win the whole thing. But we set ourselves smaller targets in between that and break it down. And I think, getting out of the group was kind of tick box 1. and winning our final game of the group was a tick box in terms of, now we can take some momentum through to the next round. And so I think that was basically how we approached each game, was just focus on the next game, focus on the next part.
Yeah, it was very much like one game at a time. Not thinking too far ahead. So yeah, it was just right. Job done. Next game, off we go, type thing.
And speaking of momentum, then the fact that you had a crossover game meant that while the teams that qualified straight to the quarterfinals had sort of 4 days off, you guys had more of a normal tournament feel in that you had 2 days off, then a game, and then another 2 days off. Did you actually sort of feel like that was in some ways in your favour because it would allow you to build that momentum, or was there more of the worry about fatigue?
I didn't have the worry about fatigue, if I'm honest. I think we trained so hard and we knew that we'd put in the sessions and it was all within our capabilities. So in that respect, it was like, we're going to make the most of and embrace this opportunity that we've got another game, and we're going to use it, hopefully, to be in a better place and just be ready to perform.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we pride ourselves on being fit and like have the durability to last tournaments. So for us, another game wasn't that. The fatigue was definitely not a worry. It was actually we've got some chance to play again and work on a few things and be even better prepared.
And you came into that crossover game against Korea and you scored a very early goal and took the lead and dominated a lot of that match. But I remember vividly being in the stadium towards the end when Korea were piling the pressure on. Maddie was making a lot of saves and the defensive work that was going on was incredible, the way you guys were keeping the Koreans out. How was that to be a part of? Because the entire stadium was tense.
I think you just that moment you just focus on doing what you got to do, and that's at that point in time it was defending. And yeah, you could definitely sense like the crowd, and I would say in true British style, things get a bit tense and nervy, and the crowd goes quiet, and everyone's there going, "Oh my goodness!" And then they roar at, Maddie making another save or someone making another like very good tackle or whatever it is. But yeah, it was we knew that winning isn't always pretty, and you have to grind out some results and dig deep when it really matters. And I think that was the exact prime time that we had to do that.
Agreed.
And as a defender, Giselle, then are they the sort of situations that one of those that you don't want to enjoy them at the time because you want sort of an easy ride, but actually you thrive on them when you're having to be at your absolute best to keep teams out?
Yeah, definitely. I think if you can, normally we've got the rest of them in front of us doing a cracking job and just making our lives easy. So when it comes to a game a bit more like that, where you literally are kind of back to the wall a little bit towards the end, and it's time to just embrace what we're there to do, and ultimately that's to keep the ball out of the goal. And yes, I think and to be honest, in those moments I don't really think about it. You just do what you've got to do, and I don't think, this is our time as defenders, because you should be fully engaged the whole time. So actually it's just another part of the game.
It's one of those things that, you spend a vast amount of time without the ball in a game, that like as a forward we might be on the ball like 5-10% of the game or something as tiny as that, and actually you can get such a buzz from defending, and in those opportunities and like those moments you just like the buzz of keeping that ball out the goal is just as big to all of us, because we know that's what you've got to do in that moment. So yeah.
And then you guys provided a classic counter-attack near the end of the game. You go and score a second goal, qualify for the quarterfinals, and you're up against the Dutch. Naturally, the rivalry with the Dutch has become a huge thing for England and Great Britain women over the last few years. So when you realise that you're sort of pitted against them, how does that make you feel as individuals and as a squad?
excited. I think also we had a genuine belief that we could and could beat them. In that moment, we'd up to then had pretty good kind of record over the last couple of years. Obviously, we'd lost the 2017 European semi-final to them, but we still had that belief because we performed really, really well in that game as well. And so yeah, I think, as we said, if you want to win, you've got to play and you've got to beat everyone. And at that moment in time, it was just another team to go out there and play against. It's a quarterfinal; they're always going to be tough games. So yeah, we were just excited.
I guess obviously the game didn't go as expected, but did you guys always sort of feel that even though that you were trailing 1-0 or 2-0, that you had the capabilities of coming back? Because you gave the Dutch possibly the toughest game they had in that entire World Cup. Did you always feel like we could still come back and get something from this?
I think so. These are like the moments we train for, and we know it's not always going to be easy, but actually the grit and the belief and the fighting spirit is something that I think we showed in abundance. And we were like, right, yeah, we've made this a bit harder for ourselves, but there's no stopping us. That we've got a chance, and we're going to give it our all to try and get the score back on our side. That sort of feeling around it.
Yeah, 100%. I genuinely thought all the way through that we would be able to score, and that we'd be able to pull it back. And I think part of that comes from prior experience against them, and knowing that we've done it before. But yeah, I think the whole way through there was definitely that we've still got this. We've definitely still got this.
And unfortunately, it wasn't quite to be. And I know I've worked with you guys for 3 years now, and that was the toughest moment for me in that whole time. But I guess, sort of, if you don't mind me asking, how did it feel for you at the end of the game, sort of knowing that you'd given your all, but it just hadn't quite come off on the day, and that was the home World Cup over, which is really sad even when I say it.
Yeah, absolutely gutted. I don't normally kind of show very much emotion after games, like on the pitch, but I just couldn't not at that point. And I don't think I've ever cried like that after a game. And I just remember, I don't think Danny had ever seen that from me either. I just remember him coming over to me and giving me a hug and just being like, "It's okay." And I was like, that just never happened before.
Yeah, I think very similar. It was just we've been on such a roller coaster, and obviously there was such this huge, such incredible home event put on, and it was just we're gutted, and actually we gutted for everyone around us as well. There was so much support behind us, so many people had given so much for us, and it was almost like a feeling of we've let them down as well. Obviously that's not how we wanted it to end and how we wanted it to go at all, but actually because of how big it all felt, it felt like we'd let more than just ourselves down. And actually there was 10,000 people in the crowd, and then every single person behind the scenes and the support that had been around, and it was just I don't know, was sorry. Yeah, pretty much.
I can safely say no one felt let down in the slightest. And you, after the tournament finished, Ellie, I know you and Alex did a fan signing session in the fan park, and the whole team did one as well. And thousands of people queued up to still get your autographs and everything. Did that make it feel any better? The fact that these guys, you'd inspired so many people, and so many people still wanted to, get your autographs and wanted to spend time with their heroes that they'd watched at the World Cup. Did that help ease things a little bit, or not at all?
I think for me personally, so that Saturday and doing the signing and doing in the fan zone with Alex, this is an opportunity of not to miss. There's just, the event is incredible. There's so many people here and so many people are given so much that actually for me that was my biggest tournament, that I could learn from it and try and give back to it. And actually, yeah, like you say, so many people were just so kind and were so proud. And actually, like initially, I think when people would say it, you'd almost be a bit like shy and embarrassed. And by the end, you were just so like, wow, thank you. I'm just grateful that, and you can see the impact that this tournament and that it had on people. So for me, it was definitely although it was, like, don't get me wrong, really difficult, like sat watching other teams compete for a medal. It was, yeah, the sense of like community and hockey family around it all was just like insane.
Yeah, I remember coming back, because we could have, like, after we'd been knocked out, we could have like 24 hours like to go home or whatever, and then come back ready to kind of watch the medal games and stuff. And I remember coming back after Elle had been to the fan zone, and just like the different perspective that she got definitely was showed that it was an incredible thing to do. I also remember watching the final and just being sat in the crowd, and like we didn't wear any England kit or anything, and we're just there essentially as just like hockey kind of fans. And I was actually sat next to Katie Millen, the Irish captain's brother and family, and they had absolutely no idea like who we were, that they were sat right next to half of like the England team and stuff. And it was just kind of nice to experience the atmosphere of the World Cup and of hockey being such a big show at that moment in time, and to experience it from a slightly different side. Obviously would have absolutely given anything and everything to have been in that final, obviously playing, but that we got to see it from the other side was also something that I think was something that was really, really worth us doing. And yeah, still was a pretty amazing experience in a different sense.
And as Zoom tells us that we are about to run out of time, we'll just wrap this fantastic episode or dual episode up by, if I could ask you for maybe 2 or 3 words of the 2018 World Cup that really sum it up for you both.
I'm not going to say pretty cool.
I was expecting it's pretty cool to come from you. Once in a lifetime. Oh, it's 4.
That's fine.
I don't know. There was just a buzz. It was special. There was a buzz about it. And yeah, it will stay with me for forever, really. Yeah, that's not 3 words, but sorry.
No, that's a perfect way to end the show. Many thanks once again to Ellie and Giselle for joining us over the last 2 weeks and reflecting back on what I think we can all agree was a truly incredible tournament. Inside the Circle, the podcast will be back in a few weeks, and in the meantime make sure you listen back to all our previous episodes and subscribe on all of your usual podcast channels.